Good afternoon. Here I'm going to try to put together a simple tutorial for Photoshop beginners. A lot of times you're going to follow a tutorial that is not going to make sense because they assume a certain level of knowledge which most beginners don't have. So I'm going to assume zero knowledge here and we'll start from there. This tutorial is creating a image where you won't see her except for these pictures. I'm not going to show you the end result because it could be in violation of school policy. I don't know if they would deem this to be cheating or whatever. But some things you might not be familiar with. So we'll go over those. The first one is getting the main image, her, into the work area. And you can place her with this tool, select file and then place, or you can drag her off from off screen using just this tool right here and go select her from maybe your documents folder and drag her over and it'll put her right down. I've chosen in this setting for this particular piece of work. I went to File, New, and I chose Web because there's a bunch of pre-filled sizes there. 800 by 600, 72, which is most common for what your Photoshop stuff is going to do. You could do higher if you're going to 300 or so if you're going to get into print. But I rarely change these. And since I'm going to be uploading this, I'm trying to keep the file size pretty small. So that's why I chose this rather than some big HD thing. We won't get into that now. Name it whatever you want and click OK. And it'll come up as you'll see this. Get her on screen. And then go here. Hit place. And find the file that you downloaded from school, and it's probably going to be called sample images. I believe when it downloads it comes in as something else, some kind of zipped folder. It's called Mark Instant Portrait Images. So extract. I usually download everything in my downloads folder, keep it there. I extract here. And then once I have the extracted example, say this is from that folder right there, then I'll move it somewhere where I'm going to use it or store it. But I keep all my stuff in here. This way I can go through later on and delete. It's just probably a bad habit, but I've gotten used to using this folder. Inside this sample images folder, you're going to have the PSD for the Photoshop file for the Polaroid frame. You're going to have to open that on a different layer, which I said something wrong. But anyways, you're going to open that on a different layer. A different deal. Just open it. Just click on it. It'll open in Photoshop. Take it from here and bring it over to right there. Now all I usually ever do is I have something over here. I grab the selection tool right here. Get the image and simply drive it up to the top until the other screen comes into focus. Bring it down, release, and it's there. Now for this particular one, you'll notice that the one she's holding and mine are two different sizes. So what I want to do is make sure that my scale is matching hers. This way the image will look more believable. How I do that is I have my selection tool. I click on the image. I click one of these little boxes. It doesn't matter. Go up here to the top where you have all your dimensions. This is rotation and size and screen position, XY coordinates. I click on this little link, and what that does is it links together this side and this side so that the image will scale evenly. Then I can put my cursor right here until I see that there's a little finger with an arrow on it, and I drag left to right to make it bigger or smaller. Now I'm not going to get real technical on this. I'm just eyeballing it to make sure I'm kind of the same size. So now once I have my size pretty close to hers, the tutorial says to place it right here, kind of above her eye a little bit. So I'm gonna put mine right there. Now here's the part that everyone's getting messed up on. I still have that layer selected, my Polaroid image. I'm going to use my magic wand tool. If you just installed and open your Photoshop, take a few minutes to go over each one of these and see where all these different tools are. Sometimes when you open a new install, will have that first. So click on that and hold your button down until you get to the magic wand and then release, and then it'll be there. Go over to the black part of the image, click the magic wand tool, go up to select, go down to inverse, select inverse. Now you'll notice that nothing really happened. It won't happen until you come down here to the bottom and click add layer mask. It looks kind of like a little camera. And all this is going to do is just create a little viewport. It's going to delete the black part so that you can see through that to her without actually deleting the black part. So I've selected it, and you'll notice right here on the layers panel it's linked to the layer mask and the viewport. Right there, the little black part has been established. So now I can move this around and we can see her face through that. Now the tutorial goes on to say we need to duplicate this, I think it's 8 more times. So I'm just going to Control J. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I have 8 copies of this frame that I can drag all over the place. Now here's where a lot of people are messing up also, is they're not keeping track of their layers. So you'll notice over here on the side there's Polaroid, Polaroid copy 2, 3, 4. I won't get into renaming those all right now, but if you want to rename one, just double click the word and rename it. And when you click somewhere else, it'll have the new name. So this one, I'm going to try to find, there it is. So right now we're just going to, before I get into all the other stuff, we're just going to kind of organize these, how they say to organize them according to the tutorial. Which, by the way, this is my first tutorial. And I'm just going to roughly kind of plop these all around. And according to the real image, this one looks to me like it should be on top, but you can see the frame of this one is blocking it. So all I'm going to do is select that one and put it all the way up to the top. If you look at this layer stack right here, you can imagine these layers, this being a piece of paper on the very bottom and this being a piece of paper on the very top. You look through all these to the bottom. Now, of course, you can't see the bottom because all these other pieces of paper are blocking it. So think of that in terms of a layer. This is the top, this is the bottom, and however you want your images to appear in the layer order is where they need to be. That might be overly simplistic, but just remembering that each layer kind of represents a piece of paper, and this is how the papers are stacked, that really helped me get my head around the whole layer thing. But anyway, you're just going to drag these around, rotate them, and sort of match things along. the lines of what the image looks like in the tutorial. And once you kind of have your basic layout here of what you're going to do, then you can move on to a little bit the next part of the tutorial. So I think that's pretty close, I think. Let me do one more. So that's the kind of short and sweet of it. The next phase would be going through the layer stack and organizing them a little bit better so that they match. Like I think this one needs to go down a little bit. And then so on and so forth. Now our next part of the tutorial is you'd want to pop the hand out of the frame and go on through that. I think the tutorial is pretty self-explanatory as far as that, but the main thing was the inverse. A couple of points I want to go over. Let's go over the inverse thing. Up here I'm using this selection tool, or the move tool, I guess. I have these two little buttons checked up here, and what they do is they select this by just clicking on it. If I don't have the auto select, then I have to click over here in order to select something. It won't automatically do it. I usually always keep this checked because I like working like this. I don't like going over here and selecting layers. Another thing is I can drop this down to select by group or by layer. For this particular tutorial it won't matter much, but when you get into grouping things, it will, because you'll end up selecting half the stuff on your screen and you won't know why. So I keep it on layer. And the transform controls is interesting because it lets me see the little bounding boxes, and I can scale using those if I need to. But sometimes they get in the way with aligning stuff, so you can turn them on and then move things around, and it's good for eyeballing stuff, which is good for really fast work, but eventually you're going to get into things like white space and layout, and you don't want to eyeball anything. What else? The magic wand tool. Sometimes you'll select something with the magic wand tool. That one's a good example. It didn't select what I wanted it to. If you don't pay attention to that, then you'll end up doing things to other parts of your image you didn't want done. To deselect, you can either go up here and select deselect, or Control D, or just click on it again with the magic wand tool. If you ever go too far, up here is your history, and you can see it because there's an arrow, and it literally looks like you can go back, and you can't. So just go up here and move back through time when you make a mistake. Now, so I'm going to select this image. I'm going to get this magic wand tool, select inside there, and I have that black area selected. And the tutorial says to do that, and then go up to select, inverse, and then if by some chance you forget to deselect this, the results you're after are just not going to happen. It doesn't really matter on this image, and this is maybe a poor example, but sometimes the tools, or you'll notice, especially when you're a beginner, that say I want to move to now this eraser tool, and I'm starting to try to erase, but it's not doing anything. It's not erasing anything at all, and I'm thinking, what did I do? What did I do? Well, I've forgotten to deselect that. It's obvious that I've not deselected it here. So you'll get something like that, and you just won't know what's going on. So now I've deselected it. Now if I was working on a really small piece, sometimes those little lines that show up, maybe if I was working on her eye and I just didn't notice it and I'm clicking all over the place going, what's going on? What's going on? That's probably what's going on. You've forgotten to deselect something. So this is the probably as far as I should take you on the tutorial. If you get messed up more, let me know and I'll just continue on. I will say this, a lot of what's going on in this tutorial is kind of old. The techniques are kind of the same, but Photoshop is very diverse. There's a lot of tools and a lot of ways to do things. I didn't do it this way with my tutorial because I just got used to working a different way. But you'll figure it out. If not, let me know. Adios.